Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hope everyone's having a good morning so far today. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Everyone please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As usual, we need to silence cell phones. Ms. Sullivan, you have a roll call, please.
Mayor Plummer,
Here.
Commissioner Brooks,
Here.
Commissioner Fields,
Here.
Commissioner Gray,
I'm back.
Commissioner Withrow.
Here.
We have a quorum and ready for the transaction of business.
Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome back, Commissioner Gray.
Thank you.
Item 4 for approval of the minutes. We have one meeting for March 14th, 2023. Are there any comments on or corrections to how the minutes are presented? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we go to special presentations. We do have our audit presentation. Brad, do you want to take us off?
Sure, I want to introduce Andy DeMoss with RFH. He is the audit manager for the cities, and he has a quick presentation and just kind of a review of the fiscal year June 30, 22 audit.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, so I'm here to talk to you all about your June 30th, 22 year. So we just completed the audit, and so this is looking back a couple months ago, but these slides are going to give you some comparative information over the last few years, so you can kind of see how things are trending. That's not really in the audit report, but the numbers are from the audit report and from past audits. I will tell you the audit report itself keeps getting longer. It's probably like 80 pages or so this year, because we did have a single audit that we had to do. Anytime you spend over $750,000 of federal funds, extra procedures are required to test those funds. So there were two major programs, so we had to do testing on those specifically, and there were no findings related to those. So that'll get uploaded and issued with the federal government this week. So that's all timely. At the front of the audit report, you'll see our independent auditors report, and this breaks out management's responsibility, auditor's responsibility. Our ultimate responsibility and why you hire us is to provide you an opinion on the financial statements. We provide an unmodified opinion that basically means that the financial statements we believe are fairly stated in all material respects. This audit is under governmental auditing standards, so we do test for compliance and internal control as part of our procedures throughout the audit, so that's also incorporated in here as well. So if you'll flip into the slides that I've provided here to you all. The first slide is on page 2, the statement of net position, essentially the city's balance sheet. And this shows the last 4 years, and as you see, the numbers are going up there. And the last column there is 2022. Overall total assets increased almost $4 million. A lot of that was in cash. Cash was up $3.5 million compared to the previous year. Some of that's, or a lot of that's from the ARPA funding that you received, but also you had your revenues went up quite a bit this past year. So capital assets increased, liabilities increased a little bit. Some of the ARPA funding, approximately half of it, was essentially deferred until that money is determined to be spent. So half of it was spent in fiscal year 22, and then the next half will be in, I believe, this next coming fiscal year. So you'll see that spent next year. Flipping on to the next slide, this shows you the last 4 years of the pension and OPEB liabilities. Those came on the books at different times over the last 10 years. And in the audit report itself, it gives you longer trend analysis But this is both hazardous and non-hazardous that we're looking at here, as well as, so the pension portion is just the pension that the retirees receive. The OPEB liability is the post-employment benefit, which is their health insurance. So there's different actuarial calculations that they go through, so that's why there's two different numbers. So you'll see here, and we've seen this with a lot of, pretty much everywhere, that it trended down last year. So I don't know if that's going to be a permanent trend, but hopefully it is. It's not a number that we come up with, or Brad, or anybody at the city comes up with. It's an actuarial number. So that $20 million there, it's not something that we're just coming up with arbitrarily. There's actuarial studies that the state puts out, and that's how that number's determined. Overall contributions into the plan last year were about 1.8 million. Yeah, 1.8 million. So quite a bit. That's the only thing. That's the best thing you can do is just look at that trend of what those contribution rates are per payroll dollar moving forward as you budget. Moving on to page 4. These are your governmental fund revenues. So overall, you'll see they increased about 2.8 million last year. Couple factors in there. $1 million increase in the intergovernmental revenue, and then you had your license and permits. Those fees went up about $1.4 million. That's your net profits, occupational license, and your insurance premiums. So all those went up significantly in fiscal year 22. Moving on to page 5, your governmental fund expenditures. These also increased. The big increase there you'll see was in capital outlay. It increased about $900,000. That's the light green down at the bottom. That's going to vary year to year. Capital outlay is when you purchase new assets. So you purchase a lot of new cruisers or whatever. That's going to occur. And then there was just increases kind of across the board in 2022. On the next page, page 6, is your enterprise fund revenues. These are your utilities. Those were up $2.5 million. Some of that increase is 1.6 was a pass-through grant in the water line relocation. So it's not really, it's a net zero in essence. But overall revenues were increased. When you look at electric charges, sewer charges, and water charges. Moving on to page 7. This is your enterprise funds. These are your expenses. The big increase there, those were up about $1.1 million. The big increase was the pass-through grant, which you see up there in administration. That's a pass-through. Like I said, it's income and expense. It's not really coming on the books. Long-term for the city. That was part of the single audit that we tested in addition to the ARPA funds that we looked at. And then the last page you'll see on page 8, this is essentially your net income for both the business side enterprise funds and the governmental funds. It was a very good year for the city. Governmental funds had essentially net income or an increase in fund balance of over $2 million. The utilities had over $600,000. So number-wise, it was really good. I think you all had a lot of projects going on. We did have a couple findings in the report towards the back of the actual bound report, just over internal control over financial reporting. And these are recurring ones. One of them is related to just audit adjustments throughout the audit. We started in October and we're now finishing. It's a long time to be having an audit going on. And a lot of that had to do with things weren't fully adjusted when we started. I think that's one thing that we've kind of talked about is how can we get others involved with that, whether it's hiring somebody new to be a finance person under Brad, or having other people pick up things such as accounts payable reconciliations or bank statement reconciliations that you already have here. 'Cause you don't really want to fully rely on one person for everything. If something were to happen to Brad, what happens? So we've run into that in other cities where people just depart and things go haywire pretty fast. So the more people you can incorporate in things, the better. The other finding is over just review of the utility bills. I think some steps have been made here subsequent to year end. So hopefully we can get rid of that one moving forward too. So, but overall, and then we had some other recommendations, but I think overall, I mean, it was a good year for the city here. So, do you all have any questions?
So you're saying we need help in Brad's place in case something should happen to him? I mean,
Well, I mean,
we're
just
up-
that, or, I mean, it opens him up for other things. It's segregation of duties, he can oversee certain things, or somebody else does the bank reconciliations, and he reviews them just to make sure they're being done right. That type of thing, and it opens Brad up to be more available for budgetary things and things like that, too.
Well, I want to say that because like, say you start in October, here it is, you know.
Right, right, in the perfect world, we're done in about a
Yeah,
month.
Right, and it shouldn't take that long to.
Yeah.
So we'll find that out.
Do you have any comments, Brad, about the report?
No, actually, just a couple to point out. I think over the last couple of years, there's been a focus on the utility fund side of it. And on that last slide there that Andy's got, I think you can finally see that we're starting to get some positive numbers coming in on the utility side of it. Obviously, governmental funds, we had a lot on the ARPA side of it coming in as well, too. Some of the expenditures we saw increases in were related to the most recent salary and wage increases that we had implemented probably about the first of the year as well too. So, but all in all, it looks good, and kind of agree with Andy's comments there that we need to look to get things a little bit more efficient and reconcile a little bit quicker, and get these guys in and get them out quicker too.
Okay, so the famous question, if you had to give us a letter grade, what letter would you?
I'd say B+. I mean, I think it's pretty good. The numbers look really good.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and we didn't have any findings, whether it's over compliance or anything like that. I mean, these are financial reporting things that you guys can help move forward. More audit type things that we're talking about.
Thank you so much, Andy, appreciate working with you, it's been a number of years.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion to approve the audit?
Yes.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Stephanie, can you call the roll?
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Fields.
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes.
Commissioner Withrow.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I just wanted to say it was great working with Andy. I know I came in on kind of the back end of the process, but him and Brad stayed communicating openly the whole process. I know we're gonna look to create hopefully some month-end close processes that help us get a little bit closer to tightening up that timeline. And then as we look at those, we may have some additional conversation of, is that something we can do with our current level of resources, or do we need some additional help there? And I am glad to see some of the positive trends, definitely look at what are one-time increases in revenue versus recurring, because as we look to see how our expenses shift, we want to be mindful of that. But particularly on the utility side, I know that we're headed in a positive direction, but we definitely have some catch-up that we need to kind of clean up and do. So I look forward to, as we finish putting together a budget for you guys to consider in the next couple of months, being able to include some of those projects that we need to get off the ground. That brings us to
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
So
So next up, we have the first reading of ordinance 2023-2, which is adopting the supplement to the code enforcement ordinance. I know Andrea is going to present, but Brian, before she does, do you want to kick anything off? Or
Yeah, so ordinance 2 is a supplement to the papers.
Oh, yes, I'm so
But
sorry.
I'll go ahead and do that while Andrew's.
Go ahead and do that while she's
So,
getting set.
yeah, to refresh everyone's memory, we're required by state statute to republish the book every 4 years. Of course, online, it's updated much quicker than that, typically every year. We always have the option with a new ordinance to send it and ask them that they immediately put it on the website, and we do that probably a couple times a year. That is coming in the future. What we happened to notice is there was one line that got left out of one ordinance that American Legal just missed, and literally it was just one line in a fee structure. So that's all that this fix is. And this is the first reading, and we'll do the formal second reading next time. But with that, we'll turn it over to Andrea.
Any questions on that item? All right, so that brings us, I was just so excited to get to the code enforcement piece. That brings us to item B, which would be 2023-3 related to code enforcement.
We might be just the few who are excited about this. Okay, so I have a really brief presentation I'm going to give to you all just to give some background into what got us to today with this ordinance put before you. So today I'm going to present on the joint code enforcement ordinance. This ordinance has been a long time coming, and I just want to give you some background. So if you could go to the next slide, Lydia. So this is an agreement that was set forth by the city of Paris, the city of North Middletown, and the unincorporated county, so the Bourbon County Fiscal Court. Just to give you some background, in 2016, the separated responsibility for code enforcement was the current practice. So the city of Paris had their own code enforcement officer, the Bourbon County Fiscal Court had their own code enforcement officer. Now we are a combined office. In 2016, the establishment of the Joint Planning Office occurred through the interlocal agreement for a joint planning unit. So this was an agreement that was signed off on by all of the municipalities within Bourbon County, which established that we do serve each of the municipalities within Bourbon County. In late 2016, the office hired on Michelle Thornsberg, our joint code enforcement officer and building inspector. At that point in time, she was serving part-time in code enforcement. Okay, so up until the past year, we have had part-time code enforcement that has been devoted to the entire county. In 2019, the city of Paris, North Middletown, and the Bourbon County Fiscal Court signed an interlocal agreement that was submitted to the Department of Local Governments. What that did was it established the commitment to form a joint code enforcement board. So that is the ordinance that is in front of you today is a result of that interlocal agreement. So it's the final step to that process. In 2020, once the pandemic hit, our office really shifted. So even though we had Michelle continuing to work part-time in code enforcement, we did start introducing an online form so that folks that wanted to submit complaints could submit it through that online form. And up until the hiring of Bobby Ritchie, who is our current full-time code enforcement officer, our office has been very reactionary. So in bringing someone on full-time, it's really enabled us to be more proactive about seeking out violations, sending warning notices, etc. And so since Bobby has been hired, in fact, the amount of violations that have been issued has increased tenfold. So while we've experienced, the ability to be more proactive, we have experienced limitations in the due process for violators. So currently, when we have violations that are outstanding, we have to send them through the criminal court procedures. And this ordinance that's before you is going to establish a civil process. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Lydia, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. A little more about the interlocal agreement. So the interlocal agreement that was signed off on in 2019, it establishes a composition for the Joint Board of Adjustment. So the City of Paris will have 2 appointments to make, and the Fiscal Court will have 2 appointments, and the City of North Middletown 1 appointment. So there are 5 total members on that board. You can go to the next one. Thank you. So as far as current, we've been meeting regularly to work on this ordinance, to really critique the way that we currently operate the office and go about enforcement proceedings. And in this work group, we brought together Public Works, we brought in law enforcement. Bobby Ritchie and Michelle Thornsberg both have been instrumental in sitting in on those meetings and talking about what they do on a day-to-day basis and how we can make our workflow better, while also giving violators that time to appeal a violation if they so choose. We also traveled to other communities. In the past year, we went to Georgetown. We sat down and had a lengthy discussion with their code enforcement staff about their ordinance, which actually this mirrors. It's very similar to what Georgetown adopted. We also went to the city of Winchester and to Lexington as well to do a bit of compare and contrast. And since they have had their ordinances in place for a few years now, we wanted to take away some lessons learned so that we were not starting from the same point. And then we also have started issuing notices of voluntary compliance. So this yellow door hanger that you see here, that is what you will see around town, properties that are in violation. Rather than issuing a citation at the get-go, they receive a warning with a period of time to remediate that violation. And when I'm talking about violations, so I'm talking about property maintenance and nuisance. So property maintenance is going to be anything that applies to the exterior of the building. It can be structural in nature. It could be a broken window. It could be an open space where critters are able to get in. It could be siding or roofing that is falling off, a gutter that is hanging down. Those are just some examples of property maintenance. As far as nuisance is concerned, we're talking grass, we're talking junk and debris that might have accumulated on a property. So the ordinance itself is not, it's not expanding what we oversee. It's actually just providing a more structured process to these same violations that we're overseeing currently. Okay, next slide. So our current limitations. So currently we lack a fining structure for repeat violators. So right now, as I explained, we send a warning notice out, and then if need be, we do issue a work order for abatement of the property. So as an example, if there is a property where there's tall grass and the time has exceeded for the violator to remediate and to mow the lawn, Bobby or Michelle will then issue a work order to Mike Smith of Public Works. Public Works will then go out, they will mow the property. The violator will receive a fee, a fine for the time that it took to mow the property, for labor, gas, other expenses, and they also are issued an administrative fee. Currently, we go through, if we have a violator that, let's say we've abated the property, there's been inaction, we have an absentee owner, we have to go through the criminal court proceedings in order to further hold the property owner or the tenant accountable for the violation that's occurred. So what that means is that it's lengthy, it costs more money, to send that on into either district or circuit court. So the Code Enforcement Board is providing more of a civil procedure so that we can call a hearing. It's going to cost us less money. We can call a hearing quicker, And I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that process. But the last thing is the lack of our framework for filing liens for repeat offenders. So currently, in our system, we stack up a series of fines. The city might have gone out and actually demolished a structure, and really that's the point at which it's up to you all as a legislative body about how aggressive you want to be with lien filing. So the ordinance has a framework for lien filing, but it's really beyond reviewing and approving this. It's really up to you all to dictate to us how aggressive you want to be about filing liens for repeat offenders. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so the proposed ordinance, it establishes the authority of the Joint Code Enforcement Board, which includes the appointment of a hearing officer. So a hearing officer is an individual that's qualified both from possibly a legal standpoint, from experience with code enforcement, to actually hear the case and issue an order. So let's say a violator appeals a violation that's been issued. They then would sit down with the hearing officer. The hearing officer could uphold the violation, or they could, deny the violation that's been issued. They could agree with the appellant. And the hearing officer it's kind of like an intermediary between the appellant, our office, and the Code Enforcement Board. Now let's say that the appellant the violation is upheld and the hearing officer issues the order. The appellant can still appeal that to the Joint Code Enforcement Board. So there's a couple of different additional mechanisms that this ordinance would allow us to have a dialogue with violators beyond just saying, okay, we're going to send you on to court. So, we're excited about the ability to increase dialogue with violators and actually have constructive conversation about improving properties. And it's also going to save our office more money down the line. It also provides a citation structure. So now, as I was explaining, we don't currently issue fines. We will send a bill for the labor and the time that Public Works has spent to go mow grass or clear debris off of a property. But this ordinance is setting up a fine structure. So technically in the ordinance, it shows first offense at $100, and that is within a 12-month period. So within every 12-month period, then it resets. Currently, and what we intend to continue doing is sending a warning notice out. So that warning notice will occur prior to that $100 citation. So if it is the first offense that's been experienced in a given 12-month period, we'll continue sending a warning notice out to properties that will not include a fine. So it's really giving a grace period to say, hey, you're in violation, you got a certain number of days to remedy it. So we are focused on voluntary compliance, and we want to continue focusing on that, instead of fining the heck out of people. So that is the structure that's in the ordinance here for the fines. And then if you could continue on. Okay, so the same ordinance has been drafted, very similar for Bourbon County Fiscal Court and for the City of North Middletown. Just to clarify, the City of Millersburg is keeping their own code enforcement proceedings. So the Fiscal Court conducted a first reading of their Joint Code Enforcement Joint Code Enforcement Ordinance last Thursday. North Middletown, we will approach their commission here in the next month and two. They meet once a month. Once, if you all choose to approve this ordinance, then the next step will be to appoint your 2 members to the Code Enforcement Board. So we would expect for those 2 appointments to be made as soon as possible. And then the board will have the authority to appoint a hearing officer or two to serve in that capacity. So that's really some background on what we've gone through, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Looks like you pretty well have it covered.
Pretty good. Citation officer, in the past, any police officer could serve as a citation officer. Is that still the same?
Well, so there's a list of qualifications in the ordinance, and certainly, you know, if it happens to be a law enforcement officer and they fit that criteria, I'm sure they could serve in that capacity.
I guess I direct it to Brian. I mean, it looks like we're specifying certain things like parking and all that says it's under code enforcement to enforce.
So like parking in the front yard is under code enforcement.
Well,
A parking ticket that the police would traditionally write is still under law enforcement.
Section 4, specifically A through H, I guess. Overnight parking on private property, parking of boat trailers and any other trailers. And it says that's in the purview of code enforcement and citation officers. In the past, we had language somewhere that said any peace officer or citation.
So, right, so when you put, what we did was we went literally section by section through all the codes. And within that section, is it 41, I think that deals with parking. It's hit and miss which sections it is.
Yeah.
So the one that deals with on-street parking or like city parking lots, that's clearly not a code enforcement issue. That's a law enforcement issue.
I just didn't want it to be one at the end. Somebody gets a citizen calls in and says, hey, there's a car parked on the sidewalk, and a policeman can't take care of it, you gotta refer it to code enforcement to do it. It just strings it out. And to me, it'd be just too simple to let all police officers fall under the sanction of a citation officer.
Well, we had a pretty good discussion about that with the police department, and I don't think the police department wanted to take on all of code enforcement. And so it was how to draw the line between what's gonna stay on the third floor and what's gonna stay on.
So parking on private property, if I have a lot out here and there's a vehicle parked that I don't want there, you don't call the police department, you can call code
Well,
enforcement.
I think if it's a trespass and that type of thing, it would be a law enforcement. But if it's just pure code enforcement from, if it goes to the police department, they're then gonna connect. And if it's the type of situation where something is concerning, they're both gonna go together. Police department accompanies, as you all know, accompanies, wellness checks and home visits all the time.
Overnight parking's pretty general.
Well, it's the code section on overnight parking. Or the page you're on, it should have all the sites.
I'm just under section 4, the jurisdictions, and then, obstruction to a sidewalk. When somebody was blocking a sidewalk or somebody's driveway, we always called the police department.
We've actually got those calls in the past to do that stuff. We can actually, as far as the law enforcement side of it, if we actually got involved in something like that, as far as a driveway or sidewalk, which we've got several complaints, we can issue actually a state ticket, which is about $180 fine. So that's how we would handle it.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
We would
not
do a
cause a
code
problem.
thing, so.
And that's why we have the specific sections of the city code. Like, overnight parking is 4203, and private property is 4206.
Okay.
So this doesn't take anything away from law enforcement like you're thinking of. I think they were
Right,
happy
the
to give some of it
division-
away.
Yeah, so from the initial complaint being received or the violation occurring, the division of duties, it doesn't change, but it does give the code enforcement board the ability to hear appeals on those sections.
So this serves as first reading?
It does. The only thing I would clarify, Andrew said, once you pass this, then the next step is to appoint the board. I think what's the more advisable position is you do it simultaneously, because we don't want to adopt an ordinance that takes effect and then not have the board fully ready to go. So either maybe the effective date of the ordinance is a couple months into the future. Of course, you guys can't appoint a quorum on your own with the board, but once you know everybody's got the appointments going, all at once. You can't adopt the ordinance to have a board and not have the board staffed.
And to that point, we'll coordinate with Andrew's office before we bring the second reading back to you. So it may not be after April 11th meeting that you see second reading, but the mayor has made contact and we are ready to make appointments on behalf of the city of Harris and bring that forward to commission when we do the second reading.
Once this passes the first and second reading, what steps can we take to get this general ordinance into the hands of our public? Because so many people still feel that this is my property and I can do whatever it is that I want to do with it. So how do we get this ordinance, once it's passed, into the hands of the general public, contractors, just property owners in general? This is what we've passed. This is what's going to be expected of everybody in our city limits.
Sure, so we do publish the proposed ordinance in the paper, and then along with that, we can also post it on our website and do a communication output on that. But along those lines, you know, one of the most difficult portions for code enforcement is we are dealing with people's properties, and, you know, due process is very important, which is why, you know, it took so much effort to kind of get this right. Because we do have to be mindful of what rights the property owner does have and what can we put requirements on it and not. So we definitely, they have certain regulations they have to follow as far as how they can review the potential violations, and you know, they do it from the sidewalk type deal. It has to be readily visible to them. So we can definitely put out some communication efforts, but there, for some, you know, there may be some limitations that we can't enforce everything still, even with these adopted changes.
And one thing I might suggest is if we could do a handout that maybe goes out in the utility bills again. You know, that tends to be in a simple way that we can just slip something in, like the resource sheet that was done recently. We could put a one-pager together that goes over the basics.
Yeah, we were talking about, we were kicking back and forth a visual that kind of shows a house and says, these are our most common code enforcement violations, right? And you have a picture of high grass, you have junk vehicles in there, you know, and then we can have a little visual to say these are the types of things that code enforcement is going to be enforcing. So Andrew, if you don't mind really quick talking about the fee structure, I believe, and you have that based off of what you saw with other entities. I wanted to make sure commission was aware. This is being proposed based on what you're seeing other communities do, but the commission does have jurisdiction if they want to see something else. Now would be a good time to have that conversation so we can make those adjustments.
Right, yeah, so the table that's shown in the PowerPoint presentation, it's showing what's in the ordinance listing as first offense, $100, second offense, $200, third offense, $300, and fourth offense, $400. Now that's within a 12-month period, so each 12-month period it will reset. Now, our office will still have the discretion to send out those warning notices, which we do intend to continue doing, rather than sending that initial notice out with a citation. When we went to other communities, actually this is a much more relaxed citation structure than what other communities are doing. Other communities are sending the citation out at the get-go. But we want to try to work with property owners to get into compliance before the fines start. So are there any questions about the fining structure?
And Andrea, if I just may make sure we're clear, this would be on top of if we had any abatement costs. So we would still have the actual cost that we would recover for mowing the lawn, for example. And then this would be on top of that. This would not replace those actual costs.
In past meetings, you have said that payment of violations, of notices of fines and payment has been, the majority have not been paid. and there has been no enforcement that requires that payment. Is the lien, is that the way it will be? How will you enforce the fines other areas? I guess my question is the application of the lien against the property, your recommendation to finally collect the money?
It is one tool that we have at our disposal based on this ordinance. However, in order to start making that part of our regular procedure, we need to hear from the city commission about how aggressive they do want to be. Now, when properties transfer, that's usually the point in time where we do settle on those outstanding fines. Oftentimes, if there is already a lien on a tax lien, that will be paid off, and then they get sent from the city clerk's office to our office, of which we will give them the total for that outstanding citation. So yeah, the ordinance is providing that framework. However, we will continue, operating the same until, the city commission, if you all choose, you do want to be more aggressive about lien filing, then, our office will file.
We have to
follow.
be, in my opinion, because we have some landlords, property owners, who have multiple pieces of property throughout the community, and year after year, they get notices, and they pretty much just throw them in the trash, because they know that we're not gonna take them to court, we're not gonna make a fuss, we're not gonna do a lien of any type. And so it has become a joke, so we're gonna have to become aggressive, and I think probably if we take maybe one or two people to court, some of the others will fall in line and realize that we mean business. Because right now it's a joke. This is an improvement. But overall in the past, it has been a joke, because I've talked to some property owners and they say, you guys send us letters all the time and we'll get to it when we want to. So we can't allow that to happen when Tim is living next to a house that has fallen down and the city doesn't do anything about it. Or, there's junk cars in a yard and the city doesn't do anything about it. They get a notice, so what?
Having the punitive part, that's what the fines are. It is a punitive if you don't enforce
If you don't pay, if you're not enforced.
You said that, I kinda like you initially have a warning, you have a kind face about it initially that, hey, we're giving you this opportunity, where you said some communities jump straight to fines, if I understood correct. So you're given a warning, and that's nice that we added that step, because you've got a kind face, but I'm like her, when you hit the punitive part, we're gonna have to be punitive, as opposed to, like you said, throwing it in the trash and they ain't gonna do nothing about it. I'm not worried about that. So I agree.
I like what you've done, but in your slide number 5, we as a commission and the fiscal court in North Middletown, we're really gonna have to put some teeth into the ordinance, or it's just gonna be a piece of paper or junk. And no one is gonna take it seriously after all the work that you've done. And we hear all the time citizens complaining about property on their street or maybe next to them that is not in compliance with anything. They get a notice and then that's it.
As one to add, as we went out to these other communities as a compare and contrast, we did learn that all 3 communities that we had approached, they have a very structured procedure in which they do file liens. And so, it certainly wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. So, we'll be prepared to do so at, your all's delegation.
And if I
But
may
we need to
add-
pass this first.
So today's first reading.
First, that's what I mean, first reading,
Yes.
then the second reading, and then we can talk about maybe putting some teeth into what's on slide number 5.
Well, the teeth's already there.
Well,
It's already
We
there.
just have
We just
to,
need to enforce it.
we have to make sure
It's,
it's the consensus of the commission to enforce it. That's not historically something that's been aggressively pursued.
What we need to do, we need to be very aggressive about these situations that are all over town, not just one area, but all over town. And that means that we're gonna make some people angry, but it needs to be done.
But they'll get in line if we show that we're gonna get on it and stay on it, as opposed to coming out strong and then letting off.
Mhm.
It's kinda like when we did the curfew many years ago. We had curfew problems for the first summer, and then after so many parents got cited, didn't, problems finally got in line, we didn't have it as much. And I think that's what, if we're all consistent with pushing this, like you said, and they see that we're gonna do it each and every time,
Mhm.
then hopefully we'll have less and less problems with it.
We can't hear you, Tim.
I'm sorry.
We can't hear you.
I'm just agreeing with Sharon that if we come out, and support all the work that they've done to get this, in front of us and passed, and to put some teeth into it, and we stay, what's the word I'm looking for? Firm about enforcing it, then I think eventually folks will get in line when they see that they can't just throw it in the trash and, oh, the city's not gonna do anything. Code enforcement's not gonna do anything, and that's the way it's, been in the past, and they've done a lot of work to get this here in front of us, so we need to support them by enforcing the teeth that they put in it. I guess it's a long way of saying that.
And I just wanted to make note, you did mention the fiscal court and the other city that's part of this. While this piece is a joint process that we want in line, our lien process isn't necessarily covered in this. So we don't have to be on exactly the same page with the fiscal court and North Middletown and how they want to move forward with how they file liens. That's kind of a separate piece to this equation. So that's not something that, while this, we're trying to get everybody on the same page of music, we can decide what's right for our city and how we want to proceed forward separately from that. Are there any other thoughts on this topic and or the lien topic?
Thanks for the hard work.
Ryan, any final
Nope.
thoughts that you want on
This
this?
is good.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Do we need to go ahead and do anything else pertaining to this?
Not today.
Okay. All right.
That brings us to item 7, consent agenda. We have 4 items on consent. Would anybody like any of these items removed to discuss separately? Hearing none, may I get a motion to approve consent items agenda A through D?
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Bye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I'll let him know.
That brings us to item 8, which is our regular agenda. We have 2 items. The first one is going to be the revisions to the utility billing adjustment policy. So we provided the initial current language as well as the proposed changes to the language. This is something that I had run through a couple of meetings ago to discuss with you all.
We just let him know.
Yeah,
He was
he's-
7A.
Did you want to talk about your event?
You're good.
You just want to be approved.
Thank y'all very much. Appreciate that.
All right.
We look forward to it.
Do you need any copies of our insurance or anything with Holiday Mead? I've got all the copies, just have you. You like to have one?
If you could give it to Miss Stephanie, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
so much.
We just knew he was waiting.
Perfect, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So this is the portion of the utility administrative guide that covers billing adjustments. So we had discussed the proposed changes a couple of meetings back. Wanted to make sure to highlight really the adjustments are applying mainly the parameters that we have in place are applied to the sewer side in situations where the water does not go back into the sewer system. So we're not having to bring the water back and treat that water. So when we get into situations of swimming pools or hidden leaks under the houses where it's just going into the ground, the city does not have that cost to bring that water back to us and treat it. So we adjust the sewer side of the bill. And you can see that's the consistent theme through all of these adjustments. We don't adjust the water side because there is still a cost for the city to treat and to deliver the water. We are not a profit generating utility. We are a nonprofit. We're just looking to cover our costs with our rates. So that's the philosophy behind when we do what adjustments we're looking to do. So a couple of things, a lot of it is cleanup, administrative changes and language changes to be more clear based on concerns that we've heard over the last couple of years. I did want to highlight that the current language and the language would say about adjustments will not be made for underground leaks to the customer side of the meter that have not been repaired, and that the adjustments will not be made for situations where they cannot be reasonably ascertained or for faulty indoor or above ground outdoor plumbing. So that's language that we talked about last time. There wasn't always consistency in the administration. You guys know I'm a big fan of being consistent with what we say we're going to do, so we will consistently administer that. But the other side of that equation is we have added an excessive use policy language for consideration. And that's based on the feedback that we received for you all. We took a look at what some other agencies do. And this would be a one-time adjustment. So one time, this would be a situation where if it does not fall in line with any of these other 5 reasons for adjustments, that we do offer a one-time adjustment. And so this goes through, and it's for excessive volume, it would exceed triple their normal bill. So it goes through how all that is calculated over the previous 12 months. And again, we would adjust the sewer. So what we have that set at for this type is anything under a $500 adjustment would be authorized to be approved at the city manager level. And then anything above that would have to come to commission for consideration. So those were some of the parameters that we had put in place for consideration as we got some feedback of wanting to have some flexibility to provide for some additional adjustment capabilities. Again, it would still be on just the sewer side of that. Want to make note, we added some language that covered current policy, the watering of the new landscaping. That was something we did in practice but didn't have language on it. The meter adjust readings, the testing of the meter services, that is another thing that we are proposing. Those rates have been in place since a long time. I think we found a previous copy from 80-something where the rates were still the same. So again, we are proposing an increase to those rates, and it would just be to cover the cost to actually do the testing of those meters. So the way that would work is if the citizen or the business feels that their water meter or their electric meter is not reading properly, we would go out, have it tested. If they're right, we replace it, there's no charge. But if the meter is testing properly and we have a charge incurred to test that, then they would receive a meter testing fee. So that's not something new, that's something that we currently have in place. We're just adjusting those fees. I believe that summarizes the changes that we have proposed. Are there any questions?
Yes, just want to make everybody clear that we have a lot of customers in the county that are not on sewer. So if they were to have a leak, there is no adjustment for those customers. I think everybody's good with it then.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Mayor has a motion. Do I have a second to approve these policy changes?
Second.
We have a second. Stephanie, could you call a roll call?
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Fields?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Woodrow?
Yes.
Mayor Plummer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Stephanie. As we look for further, as we're going to make further changes to this, one of the other things that I would ask you all to think about and consider, you don't have to provide feedback currently, But we do offer different penalties and fees for late payment, non-payment, situations of that situation. One of the things that we are running into over the last month particularly is I have had a lot of complaints related to receipt of the bill in a timely manner. And we do offer an online portal where they can get online and see their bill, but I wanted to make you all aware that this last month, and we're gonna contact the post office and try to have some discussions with them, because our billing company has confirmed that they sent the bills out in the same time that they normally do. But I think particularly with our recalculation, coming off the recalculation issue, a lot of people were waiting for that physical bill, not going online and looking at their bill like they normally do. And there was some late receipt bills. So we've had quite a few complaints about late receipt bills this month. And so those types of discussions, as we kind of keep them in our mind about, do we want to have any authority that when we have situations like that happen, do we want any waiver authority? And that's something that I'll be seeking further input on as we make some policy revisions here.
If the meter is checked out and it is good, do you have any kind of estimated cost of what it would cost for them, the customers don't have to pay?
Yes, so if they're testing an electric meter, it's $100, and then a water meter is $50.
Okay.
Thank you. That brings us to item B, financials. Brad?
Okay, so we'll start on page 145, which is the cash balances for the general fund. At the end of February, for our operating purposes, we had $10.7 million in unrestricted funds. Restricted funds were at $308,000. As you can see, I still have the ARPA funds kind of separated out. We will actually do our reporting in April to show that we spent that money with police and fire salaries and a couple other professional fees. So once we submit that report, I'll roll that money up into just the regular balance and everything. And then moving on to page 146 and 147, the summary of revenues and expenses. Just want to point out on page 147, year to date, that our revenues are exceeding expenditures by 1.7 or 1.8 million. If we look at last year's number, we were right around 628,000 revenues and exceeding expenditures. Our big increase this year, obviously, is we've got the ARPA funds that are sitting in this. So once we back those out, we're actually a little bit lower in our operating activity compared to last year. And then moving back up to page 146, just a couple of things on our projections. 60% of our line items are probably based on a formula over the last, kind of 12 months. But as you can see on the very top line, our current taxes, we are currently exceeding our budget. So I've just kind of moved that to what we currently have collected. And so any line items that we are kind of exceeding our budget, that's usually how I'll work the projection on that. Then our three main revenue sources, looking at trying to do projections based on the trailing 12 months and then what we'll have coming in the next quarter. Should probably be able to narrow these down or nail these projections down for these three accounts towards about mid-April here, towards the end, or for our last meeting there in April, because April is usually when we'll have a lot of cash collections in our last quarter. So looking at everything as well too on our projections, going back to page 147, you see that we're still projecting that revenues will exceed our expenditures by 1.5 million. Once again, however, just kind of back out the ARPA funds. And then also just right underneath that is the opioid settlement, something hard for me to say there. So, and actually right now we've gotten 62,729 have come in, so I don't know if that projection of 90,000 is actually right or not yet. I'll probably change that. But next month when we do the cash reporting, I'll have a separate line item for that amount so we can kind of track as we spend that as well. Pages 148 through 50 just are kind of the revenue trailing 12 months as well too. And then starting on page 151, give you kind of a summary by the department once again. And as you can see, total on our projected, as of right now, we're still going to be under budget by about $129,000. Now, one thing I haven't really done on both the general fund and the utility fund is we have approved some things that were not in the budget since July 1st, and I need to go back through and kind of put those into the budget as well too. So that'll probably help out the police and fire departments as well too, with my projections on those. But hopefully as we kind of get into the last quarter here, those projections will kind of settle down. And then also, starting on page 152, you just have a line roll up for every department. Really, we're looking really good on almost all of them. The things that kind of pop out to you is right now on wages, retirement, and medical insurance. We are kind of over on those, so we're kind of looking, some of that's based on how we just designed the budget. It's not necessarily the final one is for every single position full, but a estimate on how last year's wages and those numbers kind of estimate or we're ending up. So we do have just a few adjustments coming in those categories. Moving on to page 155 is the utility fund cash balances. So as you'll kind of see, we are kind of maintaining on an operating standpoint right around $1 million for this month as well too. So, and then down our restricted funds, kind of broke out where we were at in our savings account versus what we're collecting as far as the meter fee. We stayed pretty well consistent in the savings account. However, we did have some large bills to pay as well too, but we were able to pay those without tapping into our savings balance. And then also you can kind of see what we're increasing on our utility meter fee as well too from a month standpoint. Moving on to page 156, looking at the projections or actuals for the utility fund. You can see the revenues are exceeding our expenditures by $904,000. If we do go back to last year as well too, you can see that we are in a negative position. Actually, hold on a second, let me get the right column. Yeah, we were in a negative position where our expenditures were exceeding our revenues. However, last year we were paying out a lot for those water meter fees, where we had that revenue come in the prior year, and so last year we were spending that money out. So that's why you're kind of seeing that negative number as well too. Now, the one thing that we did put in this budget is we have some projects going on out at the water plant and then also the transfer fund is what we see in the grants and loan proceeds of about $7.4 million. Some of those things have kind of been delayed, so we may not necessarily have those expenditures and or use those grant funds or borrow money for this year. So kind of kept those numbers in the projections, but as you can see, as we're kind of wrapping up from a standpoint in our projection column, that revenues are still exceeding our expenditures by $653,000. Kind of anticipate that to keep the trend there as well too, as we kind of look at number one, kind of get some of the things that have been approved after July 1st into the budget, and then kind of finalize what we are going to be spending in the last quarter. So the utility fund, once again, is kind of in a good position as we're heading into the fourth quarter. And then once again, just kind of have the summary that starts on page 158 by department. Most of the departments are in pretty good shape as far as expenditures go. I know we got one on the disposal plant we just need to look at. Actually, I think we've got some approvals that I need to put into the budget, so that'll help kind of bring that back into the good as well too. And so once again, you just kind of got the detailed line by line roll up for each one of the departments there, so we can kind of see how we're looking individual line by line. And that's financials for February.
Thank you, Brad. I'll move that we accept his report as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brad. That brings us to reports outside agencies. Gordon, did you want to give us a brief report to start us off?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we finally, last week came to a resolution on the Connector Road project. We awarded and recommended an award to Atlanta, to Frederick and May for $2,502,000, which is, our budget was $2,005,000. So we got all the paperwork submitted. Hopefully, we're gonna hear back, we think, in 30 days or less, so that if that happens, then we should be able to start construction by May 1st. So we'll be glad for that time to roll around here, because if the weather's good, they think since they're gonna use soil stabilization like they're using on 460, they can probably finish the project, maybe not to finish surface, but finish the majority of it by December if weather cooperates. Next item that we talked about last time was the LK company from India. I said the last meeting they had signed agreement or an intent to buy the Ag Tech building. They're still moving forward. I checked on it Friday with their realtor in Louisville, and they said we're about 70 days out on their due diligence. And they've been contacting different contractors in the area, general contractors. They want to add an addition onto the building on the left side there for some specialized equipment that they need. So we're looking forward to that. That's excuse me, that's about somewhere between 40 and 50 employees to start out with. On April 13th, we've got a site visit from Project Alpha, which is a Japanese company that manufactures components for batteries for electric vehicles. So we're looking forward to that. And they had initially reached out to us a couple of months ago with an RFI, and we responded, and just yesterday morning they sent out additional questions, which it sounds like they're really getting down in the weeds, so we're looking forward to that. Andrea helped us there respond quickly. The next item was our Bourbon Nicholas County Regional Industrial Park. We just yesterday got our phase 1 environmental back. We're gonna meet this Thursday to approve that, and then we're moving on, excuse me, with the second phase of the award of the product development initiative. Nothing's easy. We got a laundry list of criteria you've got to meet. Once you're recommended, then there's other steps you got to go through. So we're on step 2 here, and we're going to meet Thursday with Dickens County, Bourbon County to go over those and get some direction on. And last, we've got a company, I think I mentioned this before, but the gentleman, Mr. QWERTY, that built the big building out in the industrial park, he and Van Alford, who is retired admiral from the Navy, and Gary Bello are working to form a company that will manufacture components, or not manufacture equipment. They manufacture components now, but manufacture equipment to manufacture medical gloves. And we've got a meeting this Friday with Congressman Barr personally, ahead of a trip to Washington with these folks to get federal funding to get this thing off the ground. So we've had, I thought it was dead for a while, but on Senator McConnell's recommendation, we took some different steps in a different direction, and we sent them some paperwork last week, and they gave it thumbs up, and Congressman Barr has given it a thumbs up. So we're having a meeting with him Friday to discuss further the next steps are. So we're excited that, you know, it's still a long, I wouldn't say a long shot, it's just gonna take, as McConnell's folks said, it's gonna be a long duration, so. I think that's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Gordon.
Thanks, sir.
Ms. Lauren, do you want to go next?
On both sides, or I'm representing tourism today too, so Duffy just said I have 6 minutes, is that correct? Okay. All right, Betty Ann wanted me to report just, Art Walk is going to be Friday, is it the 11th? 14th? Sorry, she didn't put a date. April the 14th. We have, Cannon Arrows will be sponsoring the stage and the Tim Talbot project again. Okay, he's not paying attention. And then we're putting together an event map, and it's going to be happening rain or shine. That is her update. From a chamber standpoint, also we're hosting a Secretariat Park event on this Thursday, 5:30 to 7:30. Everybody is invited. We just need RSVPs for that event. It's going to be at Holly McMillan's insurance office. We're just kicking off our brick campaign, so we're really excited about that aspect of our fundraising. We are getting so close fundraising wise to reaching our goal. So any last minute push and efforts that we can have to reach that goal is most appreciated. So we're really excited to bring out this brick campaign because the community, this is going to be the way the community can really be involved with this. So
What's the goal?
$450,000.
450.
And we're probably less than 100,000 away from our goal. Thank you. Thank you. Retail strategies, we're going to be having a community partners update via Zoom. I'll be sending that link out soon on April the 4th at 2:30 p.m. We have a new representative with Retail Strategies, but he's been working with us this entire time. It's just he is our main point of contact now. So for you guys that are new, I really hope that you all can be on there so you all can get a deep dive into understanding the efforts that we've gone through in the last 2 years and where we are really focusing our efforts on right now. There's a lot of opportunity that has come up within the last 3 or 4 months that I'm really excited about, and those leads are just very promising. So I would love to invite you guys to that. Write that on your calendar. I'll be for sure sending a link out this week sometime, I would assume. And then next Saturday is our Tour de Paris 5K. It is at 9:30 a.m. Anybody interested in participating needs to sign up by Thursday in order to receive a fun t-shirt. So I think that's all I have right now. And the last date to sign up for Leadership Bourbon County is April the 24th. So anybody that was interested in signing up for Leadership Bourbon County or applying for that needs to do so by April the 24th. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Busy, busy.
Thank you.
Andrew, did you have anything else for us today?
I do. I wanted to just give you an update on floodplain management. So this year, the City of Paris is going through the 5-year review with FEMA and ISO for the National Flood Insurance Program, which is part of what's called the Community Rating System. So this is a program that the City of Paris goes above and beyond what the minimum standards are for NFIP, and the benefit to the community is they receive a 10% reduction in their flood insurance rates. So that is applied citywide. And we had a representative come in from FEMA a couple weeks ago, spent the day here. We went out for a field visit to look at some of the properties that the city has acquired and demolished, which will be permanently kept as open space. As part of this review process, there's a pretty extensive report that I will be preparing and submitting to FEMA. And simultaneously this year, the city of Paris and actually Bourbon County in its entirety are receiving new flood insurance rate maps. So there's new maps that are going to be coming out. We're gearing up for a community outreach and engagement process as part of those maps being released. Now, when I say preliminary maps, this means draft maps. So the community will have an opportunity to come look at where their property is in relationship to the newly established floodplain boundaries. If they feel that it is incorrect, they can submit a comment to FEMA to take that property out of the floodplain. But with all of that said, I wanted to give you a date for an open house. So I've set a date for an open house at the library that is June 7th, and it's from 5 to 7 p.m. At that time, we're going to have the Division of Water from the state present, as well as some other consultants who are going to have stations for people to come and look at where their properties are in relationship to the flood maps. Lastly, in addition to the open house, we're also going to be putting maps out on our website too, so that folks can go up on the website and look at what the current flood maps are and what the future flood maps are. If you receive any questions regarding flood-prone properties, please give them my contact information. I'm happy to sit down with folks and pull up the maps and talk about what their options are. So that's all I wanted to talk to you about today is floodplain management.
Open house date again?
June 7th, and it's from 5 to 7 p.m. at the library. So it's a little ways out, but we're trying to get the word out about the maps. Yep.
Let me list to staff. Are there any staff with any comments?
No.
For me, just one real quick. We do have the electric franchise opening later this week, so we anticipate that will be on the April 11th agenda. So that's kind of a big item, wanted to make sure to put that back on the radar. Our last meeting, we got the direction that we are headed towards a 7-year agreement where the goal is to, within that 7 years, get to that 3% franchise that we see is pretty consistent across most organizations. But in order to be mindful of the impact on everybody, it's kind of step tiering that in. So that's the direction that we're continuing with, and we anticipate to be able to bring that back to you guys next meeting.
Okay, just one quick thing. This coming Thursday, 4 o'clock at the Paris Elementary Schools, there's going to be a groundbreaking for a new preschool building that's going to be erected. And it's my understanding there's going to be a cafeteria, gymnasium type thing, so it's going to be real nice for the community. So, I invite everybody to go, 4 o'clock this Thursday.
Where will it be? Where?
At the middle school, elementary school on Main Street, south side, what I'm used to calling the south side.
I'm good.
I have nothing.
Did one of you guys want to talk about Albert West, or did you want me to?
You want to do- Okay, sure. I think most everyone in the community knows who Mr. Albert West Sr. is. He is probably one of the older citizens in Bourbon County. His family has scheduled a birthday party for him on April 15th. He will be 100 years old. He's still very, very active in the community. He's still driving, still living by himself, doing pretty much whatever he wants. And so it has been suggested by one of the other commissioners that maybe we as the city of Paris should develop a proclamation thanking him for his years of service in the military and all of the things that he has done for the community of Paris. We need to probably gather some information from his family members so that we can do the resolution proclamation in good order, and then have Mr. West come to one of our meetings or whatever time is best for him to present him with that proclamation. And so I have talked to some of his family members and I'm getting some information, and hopefully we can have that done as soon as possible. We don't want to wait.
I think we also discussed a birthday card
Yes.
from the
Yes,
city, and
yes.
get as many signatures, not just us, but any city employees that want to be involved. I think you can get a kick out of that as well.
They're gonna honor him on the 15th, is that his birthday, actual birthday, or do you know?
I think his actual birthday may be what, 14th?
I'm not sure when the party is on Saturday.
It's on a
Right,
Saturday.
Right.
Darktown Baptist Church. It was scheduled for here, but there have been so many people who have said they're coming to the party. We do not have a place large enough in Bourbon County to host the party, so the family has moved it to Fayette County, the Darktown Baptist Church on Leestown Road, so.
That's great.
Quite a gentleman.
Yes.
Felix?
Okay.
This brings us to executive session. We do have one on the calendar today. We will need a motion to enter executive session pursuant to KRS 61-810 subsection 1, subsection C, for the discussion of litigation. John Vance et al. Versus City of Paris et al. For the disclosure of details might compromise litigation and posture.
So moved.
We have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are now in executive session. We'll take a